So turning to you, Vincent Kobesen, the slogan for PTV Group is the mind of movement. You work with different technologies, software solutions such as green intelligent transport systems, intelligent cargo systems, etc. PTV Group has also done some research project focusing on green megacities and urban planning concepts. And these days, I mean, there's been a lot of talk about it, this conference, big data, real-time data, but what does that mean in reality when it comes to transportation?
Yes, thank you very much, Elisa, for your kind words. Yes, the mind of movements, that's PTV. And I actually prepared a short statement for also the politicians here in the audience here, because I don't often get a chance to talk to so many politicians and ministers. Dear Secretary General, who made this possible for us as well, of the ITF, dear ministers, and of course, dear ladies and gentlemen, it's a great honor for me to be here today and to talk to you about the necessity of mobility that is fit for the future. The question of today for me is how can we improve transportation by using real-time data? We all know that new infrastructure is costly. It takes a long and complex process to deliver, and it has a strong impact on the environment. So the key for livable cities, for the new livable cities, is actually how can we use the existing infrastructure more efficiently and more intelligently. We know that the technology is available, and actually PTV is providing technology for that. We are an IT company in the IT technology. So PTV, we call ourselves a smart software company. We're operating in a niche. What we say, our slogan is actually not only the mind of movement, but we plan and optimize everything that moves people and goods worldwide. So actually we are active in two market areas. It's actually the public sector with traffic planning software, and we're active in the private sector, the industry sector, with transportation optimization software. We do that with 600 people worldwide, so it's really an amount, on 5 continents, and we are delivering our software in more than 120 countries in the world. We plan with PTV almost everything on the basis of historical data. So the movement of people and goods based on historical data. But now we actually were looking to a new era. Real-time data is there. So we will and we can predict almost everything which is on the move on the basis of real-time data. And that's the new challenge. That's actually the pioneer here today. We saw it in the film. We feel a bit like a pioneer as well in our industry. But the challenge is actually how do we get access to the real-time data? That's the question. In fact, the world of today has evolved. We have entered a new era in data handling. I can explain it to you. All of you here in the room carry a device, and that stores actually all our movements, all our preferences and personal information. And it's interesting to see that 90% of you, including me, are returning home when we have forgotten actually, you know it already, our mobile phone. These devices need to be seen actually as part of the city's intelligence of the future. The same way as we have now static detectors, navigation devices, onboard computers, and also the social media which is running on real time. What can real-time data do for you, and what does it mean in your lives actually? And especially when you look to our industry, I brought you 4 examples. One, it's actually traffic management. Imagine traffic lights where the signal timing is adjusted to the exact moment of the arrival of the car, the bus, the tram, or the truck. This ensures a minimal environmental impact on what will happen. It's a reliable, seamless, and efficient transport for everybody. Second, it's actually the movement of goods in cities. Here, real-time data can optimize freight transport by sharing loads and vehicles. And this means, this ensures efficient freight transport into cities, and it will minimize empty running. Third, the parking situation, and everybody knows what does that means. Driving in a city, you can't find a parking place. But real-time data helps you in finding an empty parking place, so that you don't have to drive around the block to look for a vacant one. And specific truck apps, and we are building truck apps, are helping the truck drivers in finding suitable parking places for their trucks, and safe parking places, of course. The last point where real-time data can help us, and it's an important point, is road safety. Our children driving to school in the morning on their bikes, the same time where heavy trucks and buses are entering the city. Simultaneously, transport optimization of heavy traffic flows and personal flows will ensure and will minimize accidents. And this will make roads safer for everybody. We from PTV have been planning over the years on the basis of historical data. But big data is now collected and is available in real time. But despite the fact that real-time data is generated by the people, it stays mainly in the hands of commercial companies, and it's locked away. Now I come to my recommendation towards you, ministers and politicians. We need you, as policymakers, to establish rules to make real-time data accessible for everybody, so that we can create services on that. And of course, it should be done in a safe and secure manner. And the services we will build that will benefit each member of the society. Of course, we know that these data contains personal information, but these privacy issues should be solved by making the data anonymous. My ambition as representative of the IT industry is here that you provide this legislation, so that we as IT industry can build a safer, greener, smarter and more intelligent and livable city. Thank you very much.
We actually discussed this a bit yesterday in a session, the ministers from UK and Portugal, and they both said they are aware of this issue, but it will take some time to solve. So what are you expecting time-wise?
Yeah, I have to be careful here, because I expect a lot, of course, but the infrastructure is under pressure, and everybody knows, and it's a political issue. So the politicians, they don't have too much time for this. On the other hand, political decisions will take time, and I'm aware of that. But the initiatives of countries which are taken already, yeah, it's making me happy. But I'm honest, it will take some years.
I mean, both Michelin, PTV Group, you both talk about sustainable mobility, and there's a large change that needs to happen. What do you see we need to do to make this change?
Well, first of all, we need just to carry on as we are in our mindset and pushing hard. Honestly, I mean, you mentioned the time that we need to change the regulations and all that sort of thing. But you gave the perfect example of what can happen when people, individuals or companies push things forward. This is linked, by the way, to the point I mentioned about mobilizing the private funding around the world. You see, if I look back at what happened in the history of my company, all innovations in our sector came through initiatives from the company. And then these innovations brought to people and created the environment and not only the mindset, but the real regulations. If you don't bring technology, and this is why innovation is so key. I mean, my company is living and surviving and will survive for the next 200 years because of innovation. It's the key point. When it comes out and people just realize what we can bring as a change to the earth, change to the health of people, the change, it's unbelievable. Well, then things follow up. So I haven't got much to say apart that we need to push innovation as far as possible. Whenever it's possible, wherever it's possible, countries must help subsidizing. If they subsidize something, they subsidize innovation. But they must push and help the private sector to get there. That's the only way we will get through.
Do you agree, Vincent? Push?
Yes, of course. We as PTV, we see ourselves as pioneers as well. So I totally agree. Opposite side of the table. For also entrepreneurial pioneership, you need a bit of guts, and we as a company have that. So we're quite far with our innovations, and of course we expect the politicians to do something else and to come up with the legislation here. But even when it takes some time, we will go on. We will move on with that. So we have some examples already up and running. Maybe not always with the most accurate data there is, but we're just starting. So we know that this is actually a new era where we're stepping in. Our business is actually is changing from the historical data. Actually, planning for tomorrow is we are stepping in a day where we are on the way at the moment. We are on the way, and we want to plan again. So that's a 24/7 business. So it needs pioneership to handle that, and our company is ready for that.
Perhaps I just may add something to follow up what you said. I feel very close to you, you know, honestly. It's not because I'm manufacturing tires that I don't feel close to you. The IT environment is changing our world. Now, the point where I want to come is that we cannot be alone. And we at Michelin like to federate energies and people. And by the way, we don't have much choice because the future is there. I mean, we're not just going to go and progress with our products. We're going to progress with products and services which lie on open innovation. They rely on brilliant initiatives and open innovation. And you're part of our world.
So Bertrand, you often say that we are sort of hindered by our fear, and you mentioned it a little bit in your speech as well. So what is needed for us to overcome this fear and actually change? I mean, the thing with your plane and the technology, and if we just use it, we would halve the energy consumptions. That's amazing. So why aren't we doing it?
I think we are blocked by our fear of change and our search for habits and convictions. And this is what is blocking the future. So if we want to change something, I believe we have to work on identifying very clearly what we deeply believe. What are the paradigms in which we are? And then we have to work on these paradigms. Because you cannot change the mindset of the people immediately. But you can have people really identify what they deeply believe in order to know what has to be changed. And for example, what I urge you to do in governments is to put 3 ministries together. Not to make just one ministry, but 3 should work together. It's transport, it's energy, and it's industry. Because as long as we cut the problem into pieces, it will never work. If you just identify the energy you need for transportation, it's enormous. You can be depressed with that. But if you put the industry together, for example, the people building houses, with the Minister of Energy, you realize that probably in the future the energy for transport, at least for individual transport, will be made on the roof of houses. And the energy saving in the insulation of houses can be used for transportation. And you have to put all of that together. And then you need a chief on top, a leader in the country, prime minister or president, who urges everybody to set the goals. If you have a very precise goal and you know for sure that the maximum CO2 production of a car will be 30 grams in 5 years, then the industry will know exactly where and how to invest to reach that goal because the technologies already exist. But as long as we don't have the goal and the target really clearly fixed, the industry will keep its technology for later on because the old technology will be enough. And also, if we don't know if the future will be more focused on houses or industry or transport, nobody will invest. People will wait. And waiting is really expensive today in terms of environmental problems. So these are really the things I would urge you to do.
But when we talk about climate change and environment today, it becomes almost like a red flag, like you mentioned. You know, we see this 40 years ahead, and I don't want to bother with that. But I know you went to Switzerland, and I know you changed their minds. What did you do?
I stopped to speak about protection of the environment. Because this is, exactly as you say, it's a red flag. It's a repulsive argument. Because if you need to pay the salary of your employees tomorrow in an industry, you cannot think about what happens in 40 years. You need to pay the salaries. You have people to pay. It's a short-term problem. So let's try to get rid of this argument of protection of the environment and make it protection of humankind, protection of human beings. In the protection of human beings, you have the economy. You have the salaries of the people. That means, what are the technologies today that can stimulate growth and that can make profit and create jobs? And so often I was brought to different governments, including Switzerland, to speak to the opponents of all these topics. And when they understood what I was speaking about, they told me, oh, this is interesting. I thought you were going to speak to me about protection of nature, but you're speaking to me of something else. Now I'm ready to listen to you. And when you have a vote that is changing because of discussions I had with parliamentarians, then it's interesting. A guy on the far right wing in Switzerland called me, wrote me an email after a vote that had been positive for solar power and told there was one voice majority, one. And the guy wrote me, it was my voice. Because I met you last Monday, I was ready to vote no. After meeting you, I voted yes. So these are the things you really have to bring the motivation and the solutions and the incentives rather than always the problems and the cost and all these things that will discourage everybody.
But when we talk about this is green and sustainable mobility and creating the infrastructure that will work this way, we talk a lot about new solutions, innovations, etc. Is there something today that is you feel is hindering innovation? Do we have already all the solutions that we need? We're not just using them?
Yes.
I think we are full with ideas as a company. We have, and I think what we hear today, not only today but the last couple of days, so much ideas about innovation in transportation. So I don't feel that we don't have these ideas. But of course, legislation and regulation, that's important, and that's why here the public sector and the private sector come together. And that's what's so interesting about this whole convention here, is that these two worlds meet and see what's going on. The industry is capable of doing a lot, I think, and the public sector has to see that we are able to do that. So we have to cooperate together, and that means that from both sides, the infrastructure has to. We have to give a bit away so that means the public sector have to give away a bit of the part of the infrastructure so that the logistics, for instance, can use it better. And the private part have to give a bit away of the data so that in that area the public sector can do something. So this is a way of cooperation. So.
Yeah, but, well, yeah, I mean, to your point, I totally agree with what you just said. But the technologies really exist. I mean, they're not perhaps all of them. I mean, of course, but I get the point that technologies are there. But there is an issue. I mean, just have to be conscious about that. I mean, we can just only dream. The industry has to take over afterwards and industrialize. And it's not always easy because we have to admit as industrialists that ideas can be there, technologies can be found, tested, but then when you come to industrialize that and make it at very large scale, you enter problems that you don't necessarily imagine. I can tell you, I mean, it's my day-to-day life. So that sometimes hinders things, you know. When you mentioned 30 grams per kilometers in 5 years, well, you know, I mean, okay, but you're going to run into a tremendous discussion about, gee, how do we really actually do it? I mean, if you have to change all the plants in the world of all the manufacturers of cars and tires and all the rest, it's going to be painful. I mean, you just need to have that in mind. So your point about hindering is there. I'm not pessimistic at all. I mentioned that the technologies are probably at hand. The issue behind, and as an industrialist, I have to tell you that sometimes, well, gee, it's not easy.
Do you also get the feeling that you want to push these new technologies out to the people and you're stopped by something?
Absolutely, absolutely. You know, what I'm doing just in my private life in terms of energy saving is tremendous. I divided by 3 the cost of my heating system in my house in the last 2 or 3 years. It can be done everywhere. It's an investment, but people make a confusion between investing and spending. They think something is expensive, so they shouldn't do it, and they don't understand what is all the money they can get behind. I save more, I get more money from my energy saving than on the stock exchange market. Because the technologies are here. So of course, I know that for the industry, the only way to really get to a very ambitious goal is to be obliged to do it. So if you are the only one who wants to do it,
you don't really want to hear this.
No, but you know, no, but it's going to be too difficult if you are the only one. If the governments put a target and all your competitors are obliged to do the same thing, then you will be safe. But the problem today is that you have some pioneers who take the risk of going into a direction, and sometimes they lose. The people who invested a lot in the last 5 years in solar energy in Europe lost their money. Because there was not a clear goal of what Europe was going to do with solar energy. So we have to understand that a lot of people are afraid of that risk because there is no coordination, no consultation. Once the industry has the target, then they can work on it. But as long as they don't have the target to reach, I was provocating with the 30 grams of CO2, but you will see the one who will come long enough in that forum will see the day where there will be 30 grams per 100 kilometers of CO2.
I would love to continue talking with you, but our time is unfortunately up. So thank you very much, Bertrand Piccard, Jean-Dominique Senard, and Vincent Kobesen.
Thank you.